Hey, good morning. It's Patricia Murphy. It's Wednesday. This is Seattle Now. There was a time when outdoor dining was something everyone could rally around. Even now, those sidewalk and parking space setups are a way for people to gather safely and support struggling restaurants. But 2 years into the pandemic, in cities like Edmonds, there's tension over whether those sidewalk and street setups should stick around.
I haven't seen anything as contentious as this got, at all.
Seattle Times reporter Jackie Varriano is here to explain why people and some businesses are upset. But first, let's get you caught up. Speaking of the pandemic, we have some good news. New cases in King County are down 50% over the past 7 days. Hospitalizations are also falling sharply across the state in recent weeks. But, and you knew there'd be a but, hospitals are still stretched for staff, equipment, and supplies. Health officials warned yesterday the tail end of the Omicron wave will likely persist for at least a few more weeks. An update to our conversation on yesterday's show. It looks like even more Amazonians could see a pay bump as the company tries to hold on to talent. Business Insider reported yesterday that in addition to raising maximum base pay to $350,000, the company also will make adjustments to what its average corporate employee makes. An email from inside Amazon says pay ranges for U.S. workers will be adjusted to reflect the market, which Amazon has historically paid lower than. And if you're in the Georgetown neighborhood, why not stop by the city's newest park? Mini Mart City Park used to be a gas station. Now it's a pocket park and community art space. Artists Sutton, Barris, Sculler bought the toxic patch from King County 10 years ago and have been cleaning it up for the past decade. Stop by, see some art. Mini Mart City Park is along Ellis Avenue at the north end of Boeing Field. During the pandemic, cities embraced new rules to help struggling restaurants and foster healthy gatherings in places normally meant for pedestrians and parking. Here in Seattle, there are outdoor streetery setups all over the city. And at this point, the council seems ready to keep them around until 2023. But just north in Edmonds, another city that embraced outdoor dining, things took a nasty turn when the council decided to start charging restaurants with streeteries for permits.
I think Edmonds is just a small community that everybody loves this city and loves what the downtown means to them. And it got really personal really quickly in a way that I'm not sure anybody was prepared for.
That's food writer Jackie Varriano of the Seattle Times. Specifically, the city of Edmonds decided to charge restaurants with streetery permits to keep them up. First, it was $4,000 for 4 months. Then, after some wrangling, the city lowered the fee to $2,000. But still, many restaurant owners were furious, including Erica Barnett. She owns Salish Sea Brewing in downtown Edmonds with her husband.
And one of the primary reasons why we at Salish would love to see our outside dining continue isn't because we are planning to have a bazillion people out there freezing their little tushies off, but it is because there are still pandemic issues circling the globe.
Erica and her husband Jeff ultimately decided to take down their street seating rather than pay the fee. But the rift goes beyond businesses. There is a very vocal group of people who want streeteries like this gone for good. Some want the parking back. Some people just hate the way they look. And some people argue it's unfair to other businesses in the community.
Recognizing that restaurants were especially hurt, other businesses have tolerated this essentially free property over this extensive time. However, when you see some restaurants having the extra funds to vastly expand their businesses, you have to wonder, where's the equity?
Ultimately, the streeteries question became a larger one about whether it's time to move on from the pandemic or embrace this new existence. I spoke about this at one of Schubert Ho's streeteries in downtown Edmonds with Jackie Varriano. And she says a lot of people in Edmonds are ready to move on.
Now, a lot of life has resumed the way it was before, so there's a lot of traffic. There's people out and about, restaurants you can eat inside again. So some people are questioning what is the need for dining in the street anymore.
Yeah. Jackie, you spoke to some restaurant owners. What did they have to say to you?
One, Schubert Ho, He owns multiple restaurants in Edmonds, and in this corridor, he has 3 that have streeteries. So that already is $6,000, I believe, that he is going to be paying over the next 4 months to keep his up. And he was also the one who worked with the architect to kind of make everyone have the same look if they wanted to. And for him, it needed to be for his clientele to eat outside. He wanted to provide that for everyone.
Well, so when they passed the first ordinance, it had to be a long enough term for us to invest tens of thousands of dollars into these structures. And so we said, okay, if it's a year or longer, we would invest that, knowing that we couldn't sit anybody inside at that time. And that's when we decided, okay, it's totally worth it. Now, 1 year later, we're in Omicron, and people are still hesitant and sitting outside. The pandemic is not over like everybody thought it was going to be. And our restaurants have not, thrived and made back even half the money that we lost through the beginning of the pandemic. So we felt like it was pertinent to at least keep these up until spring or summer, get through the colder months when spread is theoretically the highest and people are indoors, and give everybody an opportunity to just breathe a little bit easier until we get to the warmer months.
And aside from the individual choice of what business owners are doing with their particular restaurants, tell me what kind of impact it has had on the downtown area in general, just this fight.
Well, I think it's not just the parking. That's one issue, but also the structures are tall, they're bulky. If you are a business that has a streetery, but it's not right in front of your business and it's kind of adjacent, your streetery could be blocking another small business, and that could affect people from the street seeing that business is open. I think some people just don't like the look of them. They don't look like they're going to be here forever. But I think maybe like some people are tired of the pandemic, they're tired of the reminders of the pandemic. So they're like, let's get downtown looking the way that it was before.
Well, and I'm glad you brought up what downtown looked like, because Edmonds looks like, at least this downtown area, a very walkable place, right? Designed for people to hit shops, park their car, walk up and down. Yeah. And parking is a huge issue, I guess, with all of these streeteries in these spaces. I wonder if the city council, what are they really trying to do here? Because what it seems like the big question is, what is Edmonds going to do with its downtown now that the pandemic is no longer threatening in the same way?
Yeah. Well, that's, is it though? That's a great question. I think some of that fee is going to rent parking spaces to alleviate that parking issue. And I think that's another thing that the city council seemed divided on as well, is the pandemic as bad as it was before? Is there still a reason for this? Because even though restaurants are allowing people to dine inside, a lot of people don't feel comfortable dining inside. So this was potentially taking away one more option for people to go out and support their local restaurants if they didn't want to eat indoors.
And I'm curious what you're hearing from business owners who have either chosen to keep or get rid of their structures. What is their thinking around this?
The people that chose to tear theirs down, the feedback that I heard was it was just too great of a burden to pay on top of already incredibly small margins. And rising costs, rising employment costs, food costs, all of those things. And the people that chose to leave them up was they felt they wanted to give their customers that option, and they could afford it still. And it was worth spending that money to give people a chance to come and eat outside.
Is there any indication about how the streeteries really impacted business? Because business owners are great about talking about how they like to serve their customers and how thin their margins are, but is there any truth in that reality?
I think it really depended on what kind of business you were. If you were a brewery where your ticket prices were very small, it probably wasn't worth it to keep your streetery open for an $8 pint of beer. But if your ticket prices are higher, and you could have tickets or, guests come in and it would be $100, that seems a lot more doable to pay that $500 monthly fee. So it just seems really personal. And I think also it might not all be about your customers. It could be about being a good neighbor to your neighboring businesses. and seeing if they really wanted you to tear it down. That could factor in your decision for sure.
And I guess when you think about the overall customer experience, right, what does it mean for your restaurant? Is it a restaurant that is better suited for people to be indoors for their 5-course meal, or are you the kind of place where an outdoor seating area actually works well for what you're trying to achieve in terms of your vibe?
Well, and how big your restaurant is. That bar Daphne's just up the street, they're 200 square feet. So if you're trying to social distance or you're feeling nervous, being able to be outside there would be a game changer, as opposed to having to cram inside a nice, cozy bar, for sure.
And something similar is happening in the city of Seattle. There are plenty of streeteries that have been set up along University Way Northeast, and people are definitely taking advantage of them. What's the situation in Seattle?
I think they're still deciding what to do. Nothing is in place. Nothing is permanent, just like many of these cities. And the difference with Seattle is they haven't talked about imposing a large fee in the same way that Edmonds has. I don't think there's any other city municipality that has imposed a fee this large for a streetery.
And what was Edmonds' reasoning behind proposing the fee?
I think it really was the parking. As far as I can tell, it was to make things more equitable, perhaps. If you were a restaurant, this is taking up valuable real estate. This is how you pay for that real estate.
You know, dining during the pandemic has just changed the way we eat food out in the world, right? Yeah. We spent so much time getting takeout. Our expectations from restaurants have had to change simply because of the world we're living in. I wonder if we are just accustomed to not going indoors anymore, and I wonder if that's going to stick around.
Oh, great question. For some people, yeah. I think they really welcome the chance to eat outside, no matter the weather. And for other people, they probably were never utilizing this space to begin with. And they weren't ready to change their habits and probably won't. Seems like such a personal decision.
I wonder what kind of impact this fight has had on the downtown area here in Edmonds.
Yeah, I think it seems to be a lot of people. I mean, it's a Monday, noon. People are out. And it really isn't a beautiful day. It's a classic Seattle winter day, and I think if you're outside, you would probably be outside anyway.
Yep, we're tough enough. We're tough enough to handle the streeteries.
Yeah.
Is Edmonds tough enough for the streetery?
Oh, God, I hope so. For the next few months.
Right. And like you said, anything could change in the next few months. Is this a fight that's going to be taken up again 4 months from now?
I mean, according to some people, no. They're ready to see the back of it at the end of April, and what's done is done. But I think we'll see what happens in April, especially as the weather starts to warm up again and dry up, how much people want to keep this fight going.
Seattle Times food writer Jackie Varriano, really good to talk to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Patricia.
Thanks for listening to Seattle Now. Caroline Chamberlain Gomez produced today's show. Matt Jorgensen does our theme music. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you tomorrow.